family, and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to Black Label Reviews, go ahead and do so at this time. Be sure to set your post notification bell. When we do upload, you will receive an immediate notification. The ex-officer Brett Hankison, if you guys can recall him, this officer was one of the officers involved in the Breonna Taylor shootings. He has been found not guilty on all charges of wanton endangerment. For those of you who may not be familiar with what wanton endangerment is, it's pretty much the same thing as reckless endangerment. However, it's just worded that way in the state of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. He was found not guilty of all charges. And, what they're really saying here is that Brett Hankison was able to prove that he did not know that there was an apartment that sat directly behind Breonna Taylor's apartment. So when he shot in to the apartment, they're telling us now this had actually nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. At this point, no one has been charged in Breonna Taylor's death, not a soul. This ex-officer Brett, was actually up on a few charges of wanton endangerment for firing into an apartment behind Breonna Taylor. Okay, so it's really, really a weird situation that's going on here. There were 3 people that was in the place that he shot into behind the apartment where Breonna lived. So that is what he was up against. It had nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. So what do you guys think about this, BLR family? Do you think that Brett has received a pass in this case? Or do you perhaps think that justice was served? The family say they're very disappointed in this verdict because, again, in their opinion, the police are being sheltered, point blank. What do you think? Drop your comments below.
The jury has found former Kentucky police officer Brett Hankison not guilty of all counts in that raid, you may remember, that killed Breonna Taylor.
So the jury in this case here deliberating for just about 3 hours before they returned this not guilty verdict on all charges, acquitting Detective Brett Hankison of the charges against him. Now, the thing we have to point out here, Kira, is that these charges were not related to Breonna Taylor's death. At this point, still no one has been charged in connection with her death. These charges, they were wanton endangerment charges, and they were about the bullets, when Hankison fired his weapon the evening of that botched raid. Those bullets entered neighboring apartments. In one of those neighboring apartments, there were 3 people who obviously could have been in danger had they been struck by a bullet. So those charges that he faced during this trial revolved around those bullets that entered the neighboring apartment. It was not about Breonna Taylor. And when the Attorney General, Kentucky Attorney General, announced these charges several months ago, legal experts then said they thought it would be tough for a jury to convict him of those charges, and it turns out it seems they were right. Now, in court throughout this trial, the jurors heard about 5 days of witness testimony. The prosecutor argued that Hankison, in firing his weapon that night, and when those bullets entered the neighboring apartment, he showed extreme indifference to human life and that was a crime. But the defense argued that he was acting in defense of his fellow officers that evening, and that's why he opened fire. The jury siding with him in this case, Kira, not guilty on all charges. And I think, Breonna Taylor's mother and several others online, of course, unhappy with this, expressing themselves on social media. But not only are they unhappy with this not guilty verdict, the bigger picture here that Breonna Taylor's mother and other activists are really unhappy with is that at this point, still no one has been charged in connection with Breonna Taylor's death. Kira?
Alex, it's Terry. Thank you very much for that. And that puzzlement, which is their bullets sprayed all over a completely innocent person's apartment. She was killed. There's no charge on that. And the people whose apartment was shot into, this officer gets off, according to law, that the wanton endangerment crime. As Alex just explained very succinctly, they decided that he was legitimately within his rights to use force because he was concerned that his fellow officers were being endangered by the gunfire that came from Breonna's boyfriend. But I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Bernardo Villalona for more on this. So this was a reckless endangerment. Wanton endangerment is the way they call it in Kentucky. A person commits a crime when he or she is wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. Now, Bernardo, to a lay person, they're spraying bullets all over the place. Now, do police get an extra pass there because even though they were completely wrong, didn't belong in that apartment, shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have been firing their weapons at these people? Is this an example of essentially that we give police obviously more authority to use lethal force, and even when they get it wrong, more leeway from juries?
Yeah. So, Terry, it's not that the police are getting more leeway for getting it wrong. What it is that, look, we determined that there were many issues with the search warrant, and those issues with the search warrant is what led to the death of Breonna Taylor. The reality is that the prosecution could not prove that Brett Hankison consciously disregarded that substantial and a justifiable risk. And that's the problem the prosecution had from day one, because Brett Hankison argued, and successfully, that he wasn't aware that there was an apartment behind Breonna Taylor's apartment where the bullets would be able to enter those doors and endanger those people.
Subscribe to Black Label Reviews.